Hi, my name is Aida.
And my name is Dejda, and welcome to Sad Girl Sunday.
Yeah, so episode 1. We should just start the show like that every time with us, literally talking.
That's our intro. Just
Our
like have a
intro
good day, girl.
It literally that's what it should be. Honestly, I think that would be a great little trend.
I like that idea. Let's do it.
But yeah, y'all, I'm Ida.
And I am Dejda.
Yeah, and so in today's episode, we're gonna talk all about vulnerability.
So, vulnerability, what is it? Good question. Give me a chance to open up my Google search.
Give me a chance to look that up on the interwebs. See what the doctor says.
No, there was a really great definition, and I want to. So essentially, it's the quality or state of being exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed, either physically or emotionally, says Oxford Dictionary. But one thing that I saw last time that I really thought was super cool was the fact that there's not just one kind of vulnerability, there's actually 4 main types of vulnerability. So vulnerability can be defined as economic, social, physical, and environmental, which I think is really awesome.
I love that. I love that I honestly, I remember we talked about this before, and I'm still shocked that it's like it can be divided into like those 4 little categories.
Like umbrella term.
Right.
But I think if you think about it on a deeper level, like it makes sense, you know?
Yeah, like it wouldn't make I think vulnerability can like transfer in meaning in each of those areas in different ways. But like if you don't really think about it, it's like, ooh, like I ain't got no money, I'm broke. Financial vulnerability. But like I wouldn't like be like, oh, I am financially vulnerable when I can't afford like this pack of gum.
Exactly. No, but like
counts.
Seriously.
Yeah. That's real. But yeah, I think like overall we want to start the episode with this theme. It's the first episode, and Deja and I are being vulnerable with all of our listeners and people who are coming in to just hear what we have to say. And we think it's just a good way to start off the whole shindig. Yeah, I think the concept of vulnerability is going to permeate like in the following episodes, and it's going to come out in the things that Deja and I share about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be us reflecting on our personal experiences in relation to the topics that like we bring to the show.
Exactly. So I mean, just going off of what Ida was saying, a lot of what we'll be talking about, not only in this episode, but all of the episodes following it, requires a lot of vulnerability, not only on our parts, but the parts of individuals who we choose to bring onto the show. And we'll be sharing a lot just about our own personal experiences, situations that we've been in. And so I think this is an exercise for us and hopefully for those listening on ways that you can incorporate vulnerability into your everyday life and just times and experiences where you can, you know, allow yourself to be vulnerable. I think that's the best thing. The best way to say it is just we to allow others to be vulnerable. And so, you know, we're taking the first step in doing it. So we started Sad Girl Sunday kind of as an aim to educate, empower, and elevate the community, you know, from which we come from. And we wanted to have this platform be here. And so what exactly does wellness even mean to us? It's more like when Ida first asked me this question, it was actually really hard to answer because I didn't know.
Stumbling over our words, trying to
like in my head, and I think this goes for a lot of people. There are ideas and concepts that you have in your head that when somebody asks you to flesh it out, you're like, good question. Because I can picture what I want to say in my head. It's just extremely difficult to articulate it. But essentially, what wellness means for us, or even myself, you know, as queer Black woman, I think it really is just the idea of, you know, happiness, peace of mind, clarity, taking care of myself, overall giving myself permission in multiple aspects and areas of my life, whether that is giving myself permission to be angry and feel the full range of emotions that I so rightfully deserve to feel, or giving myself permission to buy a certain thing because, you know, I know how to manage my finances now. Or so I think giving myself permission is the biggest way, or what essentially wellness means to me. And I'm just allowing myself to fully express all of my emotions, needs, and desires.
Yeah, and I think like also for me, like I want to build on the concept that Deja mentioned regarding like having the peace of mind with like the way you express those emotions, needs, and desires, and being okay with not knowing all of the answers, you know, like not being too critical of yourself for stumbling over your words or not understanding a concept fully, being content with your progress and where you are as an individual. For me, it's also trusting myself to not tear down my value and who I am when I do receive criticism, or when I meet, I guess, an idea or a concept that isn't in alignment with who I am. I think I have to like get to a point where, and I hope that everybody like kind of like can learn or be inspired by like us trying to like challenge and grow through like this platform. But I don't want to become somebody that is just a yes man. I don't want to become too people pleasing. I think this permeates in feelings of being insecure in other areas of my life, and I think like that is something that everyone can relate to. And so like being vulnerable like on this platform and just speaking my truth and allowing people to hear it, to hash at it, to agree or disagree with the, you know, angle perspective that like we come from on the show, I think is vulnerable. I think it's powerful, and I think it allows people to kind of, I don't know, digest on the things that like we're going to bring to the table. So yeah, I hope, we really do hope that everyone like learns something from these discussions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's also important to acknowledge the fact that wellness at its core is really granted to those who have access, and not a lot of people do. So we recognize that it is a privilege, and we want to really use the platform to give people access to information they would not usually be able to obtain, whether that's information on how to balance your finances and manage that, or ways to better take care of yourself, and you know, have open and honest conversations about your mental health, have open and honest conversations about your relationship status. Like, we want people to just be more informed, because I think a lack of information is the issue here. So our whole podcast is really dedicated to access.
Yeah. And, you know, on top of that, like we are trying to reach people who wouldn't, you know, generally have, you know, access to information regarding how to like be vulnerable in discussion, or access to information regarding like where to seek like appropriate like mental health counselors. Like these kind of things are going to be brought up on our show, and it is a show that's available to anyone that's interested, but overall it will be coming from our experiences as Black women, as, you know, young women of color. And so the angle is going to be centered around that. So it's going to be for people who mostly not agree, but like identify with that perspective.
Exactly. So we hope that you will enjoy. We recognize, like Ida said, while we will be talking from the experience of Black women, it is applicable to really anyone who needs advice in any of the realms that we discuss. So we hope that it is far-reaching and useful and beneficial.
Yeah, so this is the uplifting section of the show. And so the first thing that we have on the list Congrats to us because we actually started Sad Girl Sunday and we're recording the show finally. So something to celebrate. Woohoo! We need to get one of those buttons for the next show. Yeah. The Jamaican horn. We're going to work at that.
I'm really proud of us. I think this is like super exciting. Just to give a little bit of backstory, people who may not know, in 2018, I was living in New York City and I kind of took like a pretty sudden hiatus from all my social media platforms. I honestly had just come out of a relationship that I probably shouldn't have been in to begin with. And I just wasn't doing well mentally or emotionally that entire year. And yeah, I continued to convince myself that I was fine. You know, I was like, well, I'm a grad student. I'm living in New York City, paying New York City rent. I'm going to therapy. I'm taking medication. I'm doing all the right things. Mm-hmm. Or the quote unquote, like what people would call like, you know, doing all the right things. You're on the right track. And so I continued to convince myself that I was fine. Like, how could I not be okay? I'm doing these things. I'm in, like, I have friends, I see them all the time. So like, what is going on? And I kept ignoring some pretty serious health signs because I honestly didn't feel comfortable opening up. And I had also deluded myself into thinking that I didn't need to open up. Like
I don't have any problems. I'm performing in all the
ways. Like I am performing in all the ways society tells a young 20-something-year-old grad student living in New York City. Like, how could I not be fine? And unfortunately, like all things that, you know, get left unsaid or just left to fester, it blew up in my face. And I ended up actually having to leave New York City and move back home to stay with my family. And, you know, while there, I felt these huge feelings of embarrassment and shame for having to rely on my family to take care of me. Because honestly, the last time I had lived at home, I was 13, you know? And so now I was 13 the last time I lived at home. I'm now like burgeoning on 23. I was like 10 years I was able to take care of myself, feed, clothe, do all the necessary things to like maintain a semblance of normalcy in my life. And at 23, I was unable to take care of myself in the ways that really mattered. Like I wasn't eating, my sleeping was messed up. Just things that I had allowed to continue on because I convinced myself, or I had told myself that everything was okay and I was doing the right things, and I wasn't. And with these feelings of embarrassment and shame, you know, in order to cope with them and in an effort to start making forward strides, I really shut out everyone and everything because I thought that, one, I shouldn't have access to these social media apps or these things because it would just make me further my insecurities, further all of these things that these really negative emotions that I felt. But two, the embarrassment and the shame made me shut people out. I was like, I don't want to talk to people about the fact that I had to move back home. I don't want to talk. And so right now, obviously, we are back on social media. Go follow at @sadgirlsunday_. And, you know, I have a therapist that I love. I'm hopefully on the right medication regimen and it feels like it's working. And I'm really in a place where I'm comfortable openly talking about my mental health journey thus far. So originally Sad Girl Sunday was created as a way of talking about mental health and how I'm dealing with it. And the intended goal when it came out in February, or like, I think it was like first day of February in 2020, was to post every Sunday, talk about issues that I was or still am struggling with and things that have worked for me. And if the spirit moves them, then have other people volunteer and share their feelings and just share their journey. However, COVID was like, haha, you thought. So instead of posting every Sunday, I didn't post anything really. I think I had like maybe 8 posts and then I was like, oh man, it's a pandemic.
Which is a valid reason to not find any motivation to be productive.
I could be so mad at myself. But now we're kind of starting up again because one, we've been in this pandemic for like a year and
This is the new
At this
normal.
point, I just like normalize this shit. Like,
Right.
now I'm gonna be honest. But essentially, so what we really want to do is just create a community where we can allow each other, I hate to say this again, to be vulnerable and ask questions and seek advice. And really, we hope to inspire, empower, and support everyone who is on this journey with us. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us via email, Instagram, DM. Yeah, we're really here to just be honest, open, and transparent about our journey, about our experiences. And we hope that you guys will share that with us as well.
Yeah. And it's just amazing that like you are able to reflect on your past experiences and turn it into something like creating a platform based off of, you know, your pain, which is relatable, but now it can be a teaching moment for other people who might be going through the same thing, or who might be, you know, curious and not have the words to describe what they're going through, because literacy around wellness is just, it's just not where it should be, especially amongst like communities of color. So I mean, Deja and I, we met like I think 2 or 3 weeks ago on a trip when we like went to San Francisco together. Just, you know, had a little nice weekend at a hotel. It was literally Valentine's Day weekend, and we had no fucking clue. We're like, oh, everyone's just here for Chinese New Year. Oh no, yeah, it's like President's Day on Monday. We did put together that like people like actually like have some significant others that they like to spend time with. So
yeah,
we were just out here having a little friendcation, but we decided to meet up before I actually like moved out of the Bay Area, and Deja started talking about the idea of Sad Girl Sunday, and it's something like she mentioned that it has just been developing, but over the pandemic it's just kind of been frozen in time. And I was just like, yeah, bro, like I'm fucking down, like let's do a podcast, let's do it. And a week later we were setting up meetings with each other, creating like, you know, little Zoom like recording sessions, learning how to use GarageBand in all its glory. And here we are, like we're producing, you know, this piece of work. But yeah, honestly, shout out to Deja for, no, seriously, like to take a moment to honestly thank you for your bravery and for wanting to make something of your experience and to make it something for other women and other people to learn and grow from. And it, you know, like I really hope that it turns into a project that has a huge positive impact on other people who might need it.
No, absolutely. I mean, you don't have to make mistakes in order to learn from them. You can learn to avoid certain situations by other people telling you the mistakes they made or leading you on the appropriate and right path. So if our experiences, mine and Ida's included, help you avoid certain situations financially, emotionally, relationship wise, sexually, then please take it, obviously,
please,
with a grain of salt.
P.
Like, take it with a grain of salt, because everybody's experiences are unique to the individual, but also know that like we tell you this so that you can make better decisions overall.
Yeah. So that's our first piece of uplifting news for this week's podcast. No, I know we're gonna get a little Jamaican horn button. We have
Is that what that is?
I think it's the Jamaican horn. Is it called something else?
You know what? Let me not even speak, because I truly don't.
I really don't know. I really don't know either.
But as
somebody correct us.
Jamaican, I feel like something about that doesn't sit well in my soul.
I really don't know where that horn comes from. That sound.
Like, don't they play the basketball games or something? I don't know.
They do. They also do play the air horn at basketball.
Maybe it's just an air horn. Like, I think, isn't it just, or no, air. I don't know. I don't know if it's that.
It's like
yeah. Because isn't an air horn just like,
yeah. So I guess the Jamaican air horn has rhythm. I don't know.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I know this is like we need to kind of.
I know, now we're like Google. It
It
really is a reggae air horn, dance hall style. Like,
are you serious?
girl?
Oh my God, fellow
internet
Jamaicans are like,
saying.
you fool. Oh my God.
Did you know Jamaica gave the world the air horn? There's a whole article about it. I don't know who wrote it. It could, it could not be like an
My
expert
dad
on air
isn't
horns.
listening to this. He'd be like, oh, you stupid girl.
I mean, we're gonna find out. I hope somebody please correct us on the Instagram page.
Yeah.
Let us know in the
Let us
comments
know.
when we post this. Like, is the Jamaican air horn a thing?
I think this is like a great time to preface that we are not experts.
Yeah, we don't know shit.
We are people. We are fallible creatures.
Right.
So there are going to be things that we might misspeak on, or we might say something that is just not sitting well in your soul. Please let us know. We are extremely open to conversations and correcting ourselves. I have no problem in the next episode being like, you know what? You right. It started in 19, but
right. Let us know. Lay it on us. Good. We need to get that steamrolled out. But we'll figure that out. We'll figure out the soundboard stuff. Second piece of uplifting news. San Francisco girl found Caitlin. I don't know how to say her last name still. It's Gallaread. Gallaread. Caitlin Gallaread.
Yeah.
Basically, this young Black woman, she was last seen by her family February 16th, and fortunately was located on Friday, February 26th, after police searched for over a week. And we just want to celebrate this beautiful baby girl being reunited with her family, because it's not always the case that our Black and brown girls are being prioritized or talked about when they go missing. Last time Deja and I were talking about this. We're talking about how everybody kind of goes up in a flare when there's some random white teeny bop girl missing, and it will be on every news outlet, on TV, on the internet, until we figure out where this white woman is. But then nobody's talking about the Caitlin Gallareads or Gallareads of the world. Mm-hmm. So we want to celebrate her being reunited with her family.
Yeah. And just to make a quick aside, there is such a thing as the missing white woman syndrome. And so we're not making this up when we say this. It's actually a term used by a lot of individuals, even social scientists. And it honestly refers to the extensive media coverage in television and the sensationalization that a lot of women, specifically upper middle class white women and girls, get when they are either faced with harm or danger or obviously go missing. Whereas for Black, brown, and Indigenous women, there's no media coverage, there is no search party, there's no reward, there's a lot of things that get swept under the rug. And I think that just corresponds to the way that society views us as disposable, not worthy of being found. So it truly is so beautiful that this girl was able to be reunited with her family.
Yeah, no, seriously. I just hope that more people over time catch kind of these societal biases that we have towards the value we give to certain groups over others. We want all women to be safe, but we also need to acknowledge the disparity of attention and value given to certain classes, races of people. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we felt like that uplifting news was essential to be mentioned for today's episode. And then on some lighter uplifting news, the Golden Globe nominees. We wanted just to shout out Leslie Odom Jr. He was the nominee for Best Performance by an Actor in a Supporting Role for the film One Night in Miami. Which is, if you haven't seen the trailer, y'all please look it up, because they got some fine men playing on like One Night in Miami. It's like the guy who plays Muhammad Ali. I'm like, okay.
Girl,
The
guy
guy
who
who
played
plays
Malcolm X cute.
yes,
All of them cute. All of them
the
cute.
guy who plays Malcolm X. I'm over
Yeah.
here drooling.
They all are extremely attractive, extremely talented men of color.
Yeah, they really are. It's a great film. I mean, the trailer looks great. I haven't seen it, but I think it's great because they have all these amazing, talented people who are going into kind of just like I love the movies that aren't so deep into I don't know the civil rights movement, but like kind of humanizing these figures and like kind of just like display them as like real people. Like this, I think movie like makes an attempt to do that. So I would watch it. I would definitely put it on our list for something to look into in the future.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I need to watch it. I think it's currently on Amazon Prime. This is not a plug. I'm genuinely saying I think it's on Amazon Prime. I think I saw it, so I will watch it. But I also want to just let people know that Regina King is actually the individual who directed it, and she's nominated for Best Director for a Motion Picture for One Night in Miami. So definitely give Regina King all her flowers. She stays busy, honestly.
Yeah.
She is truly phenomenal. Not only is she ageless and extremely flawless, and for those who used to watch 227, y'all know like she's stay looking exactly the same. Stay looking the same. She is gorgeous. So her black is definitely not cracking, and I hope for bigger and better things for her. So that is awesome. I'm really excited for her.
So versatile. She really is. She's just done so much with her life. Like, what would we do if we didn't have Regina King?
You wouldn't have the Boondocks.
We wouldn't have the Boondocks. Yeah. What? Come on, y'all. Give her flowers, just like Deja said. Say it twice. Say it.
What's another piece of good news? Oh yeah, this is amazing. So there is a college girl. Let me be more specific. So Philadelphia high school senior Shane, I don't want to mispronounce her name. So Shania Robinson Owens. She applied to over 20 colleges and universities, and she received over $1 million in scholarship funds. She's 17 years old, currently a senior at George Washington Carver High School of Engineering and Science. So just take that in. She's truly doing beautiful and big things, like High School of Engineering and Science. And so she has won, or not won, she was awarded over 1 million in scholarship money. And to be more exact, $1,074,260. That is phenomenal.
That's money.
Honestly,
do it.
So proud of her. That's amazing. Wow. Me and my student loans are quivering. That's so great.
I'm, blessings, more power to her. Yeah. College should be free, by the way, if anybody's curious, but really happy for this young woman and her achieving, such great things. Like, girl, what would I do if I had that many scholarship offers?
Oh my gosh. My parents would be so proud of me.
Did she decide where she was going yet? Did anybody find out like what school she chose?
The story continues. I don't think so though.
Episode 2 might follow up. Hopefully she figures that out by next week.
I know, right? I'm like, wow, but seriously, such a flex. That's awesome. This is like a plug for my younger sister. You need to start applying to scholarships.
Yes. Deja's younger sister, get on it.
This could be you we talking
right. About. All the pressure. That is funny. No, but that's amazing. And I guess like one more piece, the last piece of uplifting news for this episode. I mentioned that I moved out the Bay Area. I am finally back in Southern California for the next few months. Happy to be back home to spend time with family. I definitely, Deja was mentioning earlier about the transition from New York and going home, and I can relate to the feelings of like insecurity, letting go of that performative independence of being able to pay like my own rent every month. But I'm gonna enjoy not having any bills to pay for the next few weeks. So I'm happy I get to spend time with my family and my loved ones. I'm gonna really just soak in all of this free time and enjoy it. I'm gonna try my best to check myself if I start to feel some type of way or a slight insecurity for like, oh, I'm not working right now, or oh, I'm not doing this. But also, I want to celebrate that I get to be with my loved ones. So
yeah. And I mean, Ida, like, I think this is relatable to a lot of people, especially during COVID times where a huge amount of individuals were kind of forced to move back in with their parents, to move back in with family members, just out of job lack of, you know what I mean, lack of job security, a lot of people losing their jobs, a lot of people not being in the best places. And so it's very relatable to have those kind of insecurities. And maybe we'll even do an episode on that, because I know so many people are really out here living their best lives, paying rent, doing all of these things, having this sense of independency to then move back in with their parents who's like, where are you going at 10 p.m.?
After a decade of
you didn't know where I was at 2 a.m. 2 months ago. But now you're like, you can't leave the house at 9 p.m. What?
Yeah.
I could have been dead in a ditch 2 months ago.
But now that you see me,
basically
you worried. Okay.
Yeah, so I think that's extremely relatable. Definitely would be an amazing episode to explore kind of the psyche of what it looks like and what it means to go from this no holds barred freedom and independence to go right back into the mindset of being home and living with your parents again.
Yeah, it's definitely like I'm definitely learning more about just treating my mother as another individual and not like putting her in the risen position of my mother all the time. Like communicating, what responsibilities we want to share in the house instead of like her just like bickering at me to get something done, or me just like kind of like huffing and puffing when I'm tired of hearing her like nag or whatever. I think like being able to step back and recorrect the relationship so that way like we have a sense of equal value and respect for one another. That is something we are learning every single day, one step at a time along the way.
Boundaries, baby, boundaries.
Yeah, but yeah, stay tuned for episode 2, updates on living at home with mom. I'll let you guys know.
Or mini series.
I know, right? Moving forward, we wanted to kind of touch light on a certain topic related to vulnerability. And kind of like how I was mentioning, like living at home can bring up some feelings of insecurity, can bring up some feelings where I question like my worth or value. I think like that happens in other spaces as well, especially as like a woman of color who, has like been in like, very like white spaces, like going to like a predominantly white institution or working in government, working in education where it's, white dominated field. Most fields where you have to have a college degree, FYI, you're gonna be around lots of white people. And I think like that can bring up feelings like of anxiety and you might start to question your self-worth. And we wanted to explore that more. And we actually found this article titled "To Be Female, Anxious, and Black." I think it was written by, what was the name of this woman? Angela Neal Barnett. This woman has like a PhD in psychology. She is a professor at Kent State University. Basically, this research that Professor Barnett produced kind of tells us how the limited access that, specifically Black women of color have had within these academic and career, driven spaces kind of allowed like a lot of ignorance to kind of seep into the way a lot of people perceive Black women. And we tend to be pushed into certain roles or like these three basic images that a lot of people will kind of like try to categorize you as a Black woman who are in these kind of spaces. And so the images that she mentions in the article, the first archetype is the strong Black woman. The second one that people will try to push you into usually is the angry Black woman. And the third one is the Jezebel or video vixen. And she basically acknowledges how having such limited room for your identity in these spaces to exist kind of like builds a lot of symptoms negative mental health symptoms. I don't know if Deja wanted to go into some of the things that come up when women of color are being pushed into these like certain roles or being perceived in these certain ways.
Yes, I would love to talk about the negative side effects of men. What are you talking about? Next. So I think in the article, mainly she's discussing how, like what Ida was saying, the negative side effects are really social anxiety, PTSD. Social anxiety is huge because we find ourselves in situations that we have to be twice as good to go as far. And, we're being watched so closely. I know even myself at work, like before I'm at work, I'm just, straight face, doing what I got to do. The second I get on that elevator, it's like, okay, I put a smile on my face. I try to be as amicable and friendly and kind as possible because I don't want to be forced to, or I don't want to be perceived as like, oh, Deja got a stank attitude, or why Deja that. And so I know that I'm doing this and it's extremely harmful too. And while I recognize what it's doing internally, it's also like a lot of us do that in order to navigate spaces, like Ida was saying, that are not spaces that we're typically able to navigate or be in. There aren't a lot of us. And so the social anxiety that comes with how are people perceiving me? Did I do a good job today at, appeasing others' fears and stuff? And even the PTSD of it all, racism is a form of trauma and it obviously disproportionately affects Black women and men. And trauma in the form of racism really can be from extremely direct experiences, or those indirect microaggressions are that trauma that continues to seep into our head and distort our own reality and even causes us to avoid certain situations or circumstances because we don't want to have to deal with that. And it's becoming more and more prevalent. One of the list of things we can no longer do while Black, selling lemonade while Black, going to the park while Black, going and walking through Central Park, like, come on. So I think PTSD is extremely real. And that's what she talks about, the negative side effects of what being a Black woman in this society today looks like.
I wonder, like, do you think like it would kind of like be a supportive point for women of color seeking positions in fields that basically has the population that they kind of can identify with more? Instead of going to PWI, would it be better for your mental health to go to a historically Black college? Would it be better? Like, would it improve your mental stability if you, I guess, like chose like an office or career that was majority minority, or like an office that kind of like had more diversity? I don't know if anybody has done research to compare. We should probably.
I don't know. I mean, I honestly, it's kind of like, I look at it as like a double-edged sword, because part of me is like, yeah, go to HBCUs where you are loved and adored and supported. And I'm sure there is an ugly underbelly to HBCUs.
Right. We wouldn't be able to speak on that.
Yeah, I didn't go to an HBCU, so I don't know. I can only, put it into this imaginary category of this blissful experience and everybody on the quad just being Black and beautiful and the sun hitting you just you know what I mean?
Like really romanticize that.
Exactly. Yeah. But I also know that, and the article does a great job talking about this too, in that for a lot of Black people, you are often either the only or the first in a lot of fields. And so to combat the racism and all of these extremely negative and harmful social effects that we go through every day, we have to permeate fields where we're not the majority. We have to insert ourselves into these spaces. because it will continue if we don't.
Right.
So it's almost like, while I would love for us to just like be in this beautiful Wakanda utopia, I also recognize that in order for things to progress, we have to infiltrate these spaces. But at what cost?
It is like, we should definitely thank the people who came before us to lay the paths for us to walk, because it does. I think it's like, if you are the first of anything, the stuff that you have to deal with is neons, more difficult than like the things that like I'm gonna have to face. So much gratitude and love, support for the people who came before us to do that. But to be honest, this article was written in 2018. There's still a lot of firsts. There's still, this is not like the 1900s when things were like really popping up when it came to integration, and people being able to kind of like start to really infiltrate like those spaces. But I would not doubt that if I went on Google, we can find companies that have never had like, I don't know, like a Black woman in leadership at an executive level or something like that. Like, I think all of this is still relevant today. And it's something that is finally starting to get attention and starting to, and I mean, the fact that this research is like came out and there's going to be more people to follow this up with even more information. It's a good thing, but it's fresh, y'all. It's really raw. But one of the things that Dr. Barnett mentions in the article as a solution to take away the stigma of help seeking, and like, she acknowledges that slowly over time the stigma associated with seeking help for anxiety is disappearing. I know, like, I can speak from my experience, like mental health, it was not a conversation that was centered around anything growing up. Like in my home, at least, like it's something that is still new. I'm assuming with a lot of other Black identifying families or people who come from the African diaspora. And I think like with our generation, that is like starting to be removed, that stigma. And women have begun to understand that, an anxious Black woman is not crazy. You're just simply anxious. Like, I think we try to attach, again, like going back to those archetypes and those images that like we have grown up with in media and in culture. We try to attach those images to individuals, and we forget, like, someone, if they just anxious, they just anxious. It doesn't mean that she is an angry Black woman or she's a strong Black woman who has to deal with all these problems. It's like, anxiety just exists within the human experience. And so with assistance, through, help seeking, through counseling and through group therapy and things like that, Black women can reclaim her life and her individuality. And also, I think more and more today, I think therapy, as it's becoming therapy and mental health, I think over the past few years has started to become more of a hot topic and more of like a centered, I don't know, point of contention, just because, there isn't a lot of counselors who really have cultural competence in the experiences of Black people. And so Black women, they want to seek counselors and therapists who understand their issues. So it's important that the therapists enhance their cultural competency and be open to culturally adapting anxiety interventions. And she mentions this in the article as well. And I would go as far as saying, like, I think we just need to find, there is a demand and need for Black people in medicine. And, cultural competency is, I think, maybe the first step, but I think it makes a huge difference to have somebody, like, representation matters. Like, it's so corny and we've repeated that so many times, like watered down at this point, but it's true that we need to have people that we identify with culturally, that we can trust when we look at someone, we feel that they know the experiences that, you know, we've been through, that we can kind of open up with. And so we need more Black therapists, Black counselors, you know, women, you know, of color to enter those fields. And we need to make it accessible for those groups to be able to enter those fields, because we need healthier people in the world. I remember, not directly with mental health, but I think Deja, we were talking about childbirth and how the risk of like a mother giving birth at a hospital, like dying or passing, that risk is decreased by her just having a Black doctor. Yep. And I don't know why. I mean, I don't have like the statistics in front of me, but I think it just speaks to the demand. The demand is there. The supply is not meeting the demand. And yeah, that is kind of the point of the article. I think overall bringing attention to the need for cultural competency in healthcare and the need for representation in healthcare.
And I think, Ida, like, you make a great point, this idea of the anxious Black woman kind of thinking that she herself is crazy and not thinking that you have every right to be anxious. Like, we are consistently witnessing or experiencing race-based trauma, and it is devastating. So you have every right to be anxious about navigating certain spaces. You have every right to be anxious about how the people around you will perceive you. So on the one hand, you are justified in that anxiety because society has not proven different. And on the other hand, it's also, how do we navigate that? How do we make it so that we normalize being, you know, in these spaces? And by getting more people, by having more representation, we can slowly destigmatize or, you know, infiltrate these spaces with Black bodies. And so I think it is important, as the article states, to just note that one of the ideas of making people feel more seen, making Black women feel more seen, is having sister circles. And it essentially is groups of women who are able to show up unapologetically and share their experiences. And it's so funny because it reminds me of senior year of college when Ida and I lived together, and it's like, it was called a gateway. It's essentially the form of an apartment with 4 bedrooms. And we lived with 2 other roommates, Lydia and Cynthia. Mm-hmm. And
shout out to Liz and Cynth.
We would have these, I mean, it wasn't called a sister circle, but we would just have these women of color come over because we wanted to create spaces for them to show up, to be unapologetically themselves, to be able to take off the performative person that they have to be outside of our apartment door. You know, the girl who's always upbeat, the girl who's president, these phenomenal Black women who are executing at extremely high levels every day, but who just want a space to be like, yeah, screw this. Like, I want to sit back. I want to talk about hair. I want to talk about whatever I want to talk about, and not be seen as like, well, what is she doing? Mm-hmm. So we really try to open our gateway to allow others to be able to just breathe. And it's unfortunate that the university that we went to did not have a lot of spaces for us to do that. So we had to create our own spaces. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, creating your own spaces, creating your own platforms, you know, like what we're doing right now, in order to allow people to know that you are not crazy. You are allowed to be your full self. And we hope that you show up as your full self. And that takes confidence. That takes, right back at it, vulnerability. Showing up in spaces and being extremely confident and comfortable in who you are without fear of, you know, why is she acting like this, judgment, and all of these things. That's extremely vulnerable, and it's hard. I will never say it's not hard. I think it's extremely difficult, but I also think it's so necessary for your own personal growth. You know, combating this idea of who you think you have to be to others and being true to who you actually are. And I'm still learning that. So do not think I am sitting up here on a soapbox like, yeah, and I am perfect. No.
We just acknowledge that
yes,
it's needed and we're working on it ourselves, but we want everyone to understand that, like, what was that, oh man, leaning in. Who was that bitch that wrote that?
Yeah.
Sorry, excuse my language, you guys. I'm working on cussing less. But yeah, like, honestly though, like, I think like people should like kind of like try their best to build a support group of people that they can really confide and share themselves with openly, because we need that human connection to feel safe, to feel seen, to feel heard.
Exhausting also. Like, think about playing a character 24/7, 360.
Right.
It's exhausting.
Yeah. Especially if it's not in alignment with who you are. That is great if you a bad bitch, video vixen, Megan the Stallion ass mofo, and I mean, but even so, like, even for the women who can really feel aligned with that role, everyone needs room to step out of that every now and then. Everyone needs room to just be an individual, to exist as a human. And so I think these archetypes really do limit the type of expressions that, like, people and communities of color have been permitted to express in academic and workspaces, and I'm pretty sure in many other spaces.
Well, it just treats Black women as a monolith, and we are so much more than that. We are extremely multifaceted creatures, and if one day I want to be a bookworm or whatever we perceive to be as a nerd and doing this, and then the next day I want to be dressing up, looking my finest, I have every right to be all of the extensions of who I am. We are not one person or one thing. You cannot categorize us into one box. We are a plethora of the beauty and the magnificence of our ancestors, and we're allowed to show up in different spaces,
yes,
however we want to, and that should be perceived as okay because everybody else gets to. You know what I mean? And I think of this so much in college, where you would see these non-women of color just being their full unapologetic, I just want to highlight unapologetic selves.
And you had these women who were out here drunk on a Saturday night wearing like whatever they wanted, and then Sunday morning, Easter, like at church dressed up like to the gods. Like, go ahead, boo-boo, you do you. You are allowed to express and be a part of all of those experiences. And I just want the same for all women. Yeah. I want everyone to be able to feel, the ability of the joy of just being yourself, the joy of just like being yourself without judgment or restriction.
Yeah. So I think it all ties back to what we originally spoke at the beginning. Just wellness is allowing yourself to show up fully, regardless of the communities that you're entering in, while maintaining and being respectful of the spaces that you're inserting yourself in. I think wellness is this idea of really showing up and being your full, authentic self without any fear of like retribution or any need for an apology, allowing ourselves that ability.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's kind of the end of the show. I can't believe we just finished our first episode, y'all. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming and being present. It's just like, we really are so grateful for everyone who's supporting us. Dejda and I still can't believe that this started out like as an idea from a conversation in a hotel room in San Francisco. And like, it just came to fruition. It came to light.
Yeah, no, and it's just funny because even discussing the process of how this came to be, it really started as this self-indulgent thing for me to create this platform or create this space where I could aid in my own healing. And now I really do see the potential for this to help others on a much bigger scale. And it allows young women to lead the conversation and take ownership of our narrative. And so when we say we want people to reach out and ask questions, we want people to volunteer and be guests on the show, we absolutely mean it. Because like we said before, Black women are not a monolith. We are an extension of so many big and beautiful things. And the more people we can share their stories of and their journeys on this platform, the more you will see that we are an ending. You know, we are extremely diverse in our own ways, in our own creativity, in our own just everything. So
Yep. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hope to see y'all, or hope y'all continue checking in with us on Sundays. If you want to like share any topics or ideas that you guys want us to kind of talk about, please go to our Instagram page at sadgirlsunday_. And yeah, much love and appreciation. And thank y'all for showing up. Bye.